Fighter 2 the movie is a rare gem indeed. It does exactly what a movie based on a video game should do by following the core plot of the game and getting most every character from the game into the movie, while still managing to focus on the most popular characters such as Ryu, Ken, and Chun-Li. This is in direct contrast to the horribly done American Street Fighter 2 movie that starred Jean-Claude Van Damme and attempted to make Guile the main focus. Growing up, and even now, Street Fighter 2 is one of my favorite video games. Released in arcades in 1991 by Capcom, the game took both American and Japanese arcades by storm, with its stunning graphics, lightning-fast action, and superb gameplay. To this day, I don't think there is a fighting game that plays as well as Street Fighter, and believe me when I tell you that I'm a fighting game fanatic. So it's no wonder that Street Fighter 2 has been ported to virtually every console imaginable. And the legacy of Street Fighter is even now still being written, with the worldwide release of Street Fighter 4 and The Legend of Chun-Li movie both coming in February of 2009. Penned and directed by Gisaburo Sugi, whose credits include such classics as Astro Boy and Lupin III, Street Fighter 2 the movie was originally released on August 8, 1994 in Japan. The movie opens during a raging storm in a grassy field in the Australian outback, where Ryu and Sagat face off for the first time. The first time I heard about the Street Fighter 2 anime movie, as it was called back then, was thanks to GameFan magazine. I desperately wanted to see this movie, which, according to GameFan magazine, was far superior than the live-action mess Hollywood had released. But at that point in time, I saw little hope of being able to see the movie, because the only way to get a copy was on an expensive import Laserdisc. While Laserdisc thrived in Japan because of its superior audio and video quality, it never really caught on here in America, because VHS tape was simply much more inexpensive. But as luck would have it, I was able to see the Street Fighter 2 movie fan sub, thanks to my late wonderful grandfather, and a small store known back then as House of Video Games. Having read about Street Fighter 2 the movie so long ago, I had fantasized about seeing the movie. This was unique to say the least, because as a teenager you develop such high expectations. Thankfully, Street Fighter 2 did not let me down in the least. Sadly, Street Fighter 2 the movie would never see release in US theaters, but was released direct-to-video on January 16, 1996 by Manga Entertainment in both cut and uncut formats. However, even the uncut release was missing some scenes, namely the Chun-Li shower scene. There were also some other major differences between the Japanese and American version of the film, mainly a change to the music. The Japanese version featured a beautifully done, softer soundtrack, while for whatever reason, manga and Sony opted for a hardcore rock soundtrack. To make matters worse, the dub itself just isn't good. In the Japanese version, Chun-Li sounds exactly as she should, cute with a hint of deadly.
それなら腕の方もお試しになったら？遊んだら暇ねえんだ。
But in the American version, she sounds like a lesbian or a man. Well, same thing, I guess.
I'm Chun-Li. What do you mean, Captain?
I don't need Interpol's or anyone else's help to take him out.
Hey, brushhead! This is not a request!
Huh? Ryu? Just how do you know about him?
Well, now it would appear I've touched a sensitive spot.
Shut up! I have had enough of this!
Why does Ken sound so nasally? Does he have a cold? Compare that to his Japanese voice.
なるほど。結構できるじゃねえか。気に入ったぜ！昇竜拳！
And Rue sounds like a jock.
You know, I heard Sagat was hired as an attack dog by the Shadow Law organization.
What's this shadow law?
You don't know? Nope.
Whereas in the original Japanese,
動けているって話を聞いたな。
シャドル？なんだそれ？
知らないのか？
知らん。
as you can hear, the Japanese version is vastly superior to the English dub, and that's a real shame because even now I feel with the right director and casting, this could have very easily been a great English dub. Thankfully, manga has now re-released the Street Fighter II movie uncut on a dual-sided DVD that contains both a true uncut English version and the original goodness that is the Japanese version. The story, while simple, shows more complexity than you might think for a plot based on a fighting game. Vega, known as M. Bison in the American version, is a ruthless leader of a major terrorist organization known as Shadowrun. Vega has desperately been searching for the greatest fighter on the planet for years. He finally finds who he is seeking in Rue, a Japanese wandering fighter who never stays in one place long enough to be found. Vega soon becomes aware of another fighter named Ken Masters, an American martial arts champion who studied with Rue under Goken as a young man, and has an identical power level to Rue. It also happens that Ken is longing to find his elusive friend Rue, who can seemingly travel from Asia to India on foot with only his duffel bag. Man, I'd like to see Rue try to get through airport security these days dressed like that. Meanwhile, Guile from the United States Army is forced to team up with Chun-Li from Interpol in hopes of apprehending Vega and putting a stop to his international ring of crime. The fights are all well done and nicely paced, but in truth, they really aren't very much like the game. Now in the game, one can throw as many fireballs and hurricane kicks as their heart desires. But in the movie, for example, the famous Hadouken must be charged before being thrown. What this actually does is give the special moves far more meaning, and influences the psychology of the on-screen fight. If you look at other decent anime titles based on fighting games, a similar style is used. Though many would argue that this strays too far from the game, I tend to think it's beneficial for making the fights flow with much more dramatic effect. Even if you're not a fan of the Street Fighter II video games, those who enjoy good martial arts action-based movies are going to find Street Fighter II the movie to be a fun action ride. For those who are fans of the Street Fighter series, you'll find a movie that pays homage and respect to one of the most influential video games ever created. To this day, I can still sit down and enjoy Street Fighter II the movie as if it were the first time I've watched it. A good story, outstanding Japanese soundtrack, fluid animation, and great action sequences make Street Fighter II the movie a title that you gotta see.
Hey!